Diplomatic efforts to end the war in Ukraine continue even as Russian attacks on Ukrainian cities carry on without a pause. Ukrainian and Russian negotiators will today resume talks to bring about some form of resolution to the conflict, this time via video conference. President Putin's spokesperson Dmitry Peskov confirmed on Twitter that today's meeting will be held to sum up the results of the meetings held so far. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that the main task of his delegation here was to arrange a meeting between himself and his counterpart, Vladimir Putin.
Щоденно у відеоформаті говорять представники наших делегацій наших країн. У нашої делегації завдання чітке – зробити усе, щоб відбулася зустріч президентів, зустріч, яку, я впевнений, очікують люди. Зрозуміло, що це складна історія, тяжкий шлях, але шлях потрібний.
This round of talks comes after both sides said that they were making headway in the negotiations. A member of Russia's negotiating team was quoted telling Russian media that he expected talks to progress over the next few days into a unified position where documents can be signed. But neither side said what these would cover. 3 rounds of talks between the two sides in Belarus, and the most recent one held last Monday had focused mainly on humanitarian issues. President Putin too has acknowledged that there had been some positive shift in the dialogue and that negotiations are being held almost daily. For Ukraine, a ceasefire is critical as thousands of people have died since the 24th of February when Russian President Vladimir Putin launched what he called a special military operation to rid the country of Nazis. And joining us live for more on this is our correspondent Giles Gibson from Latvia. Thank you so much for joining us, Giles. Ukrainian and Russian negotiators today to resume talks to bring about some form of resolution to the conflict. What can we expect going forward?
Yeah, some really positive sounds coming out of both sides from the Ukrainians and the Russians over the weekend. You had a member of the Russian delegation saying that there had been substantial progress and that documents, not clear exactly what he meant by that, could be signed in the coming days. You also had an advisor to the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky putting a video online on his social media channels talking about how Russia was beginning to talk constructively. So some very positive noises coming out of both sides. You also have the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky saying that there are daily video talks that have been ongoing since those talks that we saw inside Belarus face-to-face a couple of times. But at this stage, really, it's not clear what exactly could be in the works. Of course, in these previous rounds of talks, the only things that they've really managed to agree on is establishing these humanitarian corridors. And so far, those corridors have been working, in bits and pieces at best.
Right, absolutely. Now, do you think we can expect a meeting between Vladimir Putin and President Zelensky?
Well, that is what Volodymyr Zelensky says that is the key part of his negotiating team. The key task is setting up this summit between Vladimir Putin and the President of Ukraine. Of course, the highest level talks that we've seen so far were those talks on Thursday last week that were taking place in Turkey between the two foreign ministers, between Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, and Foreign Minister Kuleba from the Ukrainian side. That is the highest level that has yet been established. So they've sort of been working their way up from those delegations that met in Belarus, then the foreign ministers. The next step, of course, would be a summit, but it's not clear at this stage whether the Ukrainian president would agree to meet with the Russian President Vladimir Putin if there is no sort of ceasefire established within the country.
Right. Now, Giles, you touched on this earlier, but once again, both sides have said that they've made some headway in the negotiations. Now, on ground, the situation is in stark contrast. There has been a positive shift, but do you think this will be effective in leading to a ceasefire?
Well, I think we're just seeing the same sort of pattern playing out in terms of the military action. We've been hearing reports once again in the early hours of Monday morning that there have been air raid sirens going off in Kiev and Lviv. And really early on in the negotiations, what we kept hearing from Volodymyr Zelensky was that they needed to see a ceasefire before they were prepared to have any serious negotiations. Perhaps something has changed there with the Ukrainians coming under such pressure, especially around the capital, Kiev. But that was really the red line, so to speak, that the Ukrainian president was laying down early on, that he wasn't going to have any sort of a meeting with Vladimir Putin unless Russian forces stopped their advance.
Right. Also, just before we wrap up, amidst all of this, China and Moscow's partnership has been under increased scrutiny as well. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we've had these reports that Russia requested military aid from China. The embassy in Washington, D.C., the Chinese embassy, has said that they are not aware of those reports, so there's been absolutely no confirmation from the Chinese or indeed from the Kremlin officially that that request was actually made. But we have had the United States, the US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, putting out a warning basically saying that if Russia or that if China does come to Russia's aid, does send in military equipment, then that there would be severe consequences if they decide to go down that path.
All right, Jazz, thank you so much for joining us with your assessment of the situation so far. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.